Kathy and Charlene, you ready? All right, so we're going to start discussion. So we're going to start with the most popular topic, best practices on introducing LPM to leadership without making them want to run to the hills. Nice. All right, we're going to set the topic for 5 minutes. Kathy and Charlene, who wants to start?
Yeah, I'll be happy to go ahead and start, and
Sure.
then let Kathy chime in. I think with any of the business agility competencies, and lean portfolio management being one of those that's extremely important to tie strategy to execution. Before we introduce any type of terminology related to LPM to any of our leadership, we want to help them understand what the framework is about. So I typically will start off making sure they have a baseline understanding of safe and business agility, either with an executive overview or some type of safe overview, so they understand where it fits in. And by focusing more, with leadership that kind of works in the strategy space and, heads up many of the business units, what really resonates with them is the business agility piece. So I always try to kind of avoid, safe specific terminology in the early days so that we can just get a common understanding of business agility. And that usually, helps with that foundation. And then when we start to introduce the LPM competency, that's part of the 7 core competencies of business agility, it starts to tie things together. And not until we get to that point do I even introduce, the safe specific concepts. So I think just trying to frame it the right way before you get started into the deep diving of the LPM concepts, I've found as a general practice, helps them get to that point before you start to get into the nitty gritty of how lean portfolio management works. Kathy?
Thanks, Charlene. Pardon me. From my perspective, I like to start with, pardon me, I like to start with the why, right? So what problems are you facing today? Are there opportunities that you are missing? Is the way, for example, funding is handled today, is that forcing you to work on low priority work rather than the highest priority work, because you're using a project-based funding model as opposed to funding the development value streams? So if we can start with why, then they have a sense of urgency and a goal in mind. This is the problem we're trying to solve, then let's get started. So that's what I like to do. Charlene, do you want to get any more specific here?
No, I think we've covered a lot of the comments around how to get started without, and like I said, in the early portions of this, I do try to avoid too much safe specific terminology and just get them to understand, like Kathy said, the basic genesis of some of the problems they might be having, and then we can chime in with how some of these concepts can help them.
Yes, I'll just add a couple of the other things that I've seen kind of cause people concern about adopting lean portfolio management is, if you're a consultant, your clients may have a concern that you don't understand how they work today or what makes their current situation unique. And so if you're a consultant, please make sure that you spend enough time understanding and respecting what's been done to date. And then rather than blame them, right? Try not, I'm sure if you're a coach on this call, you don't blame people, but help them understand that the rules of the game have changed around them. And again, that may be part of the motivation to adopt a new approach.
So I just want to add something real quick. If anybody has a comment that they want to add to this topic or any topic in the future, underneath the discussion topic is a little box where you can do that. All right.
Oh, great. Thanks. Yes, right. Just start the conversation. Yes, excellent. Thank you so much. And since we've got a minute left, I will just suggest one other thing that, from my perspective, lean portfolio management has more than 30 concepts and practices associated with it. That's a lot to take on. And so again, if you understand what problems are we trying to solve, then you can help identify the the areas, the concepts, and the practices that go with it that will help address those most critical pain points. That's it.
All right, so I guess we can end it early. Drag it over. All right, next topic. Tools and best practices for managing dependencies in the full Agile environment. Solution art capabilities with multiple arts.
Okay, great. I'll start this one, and then Charlene can add her perspective. So I always like to start back with, safe principle number 6, visualize your work. And so any tool that you use to manage dependencies, you want to be able to see the connection points. And why is that so important? Because our goal, my goal, would be to reduce or eliminate dependencies rather than manage them. And if we can see where those dependencies are, then we can ask the questions, why do those dependencies exist? And is there any opportunity to change things to reduce those dependencies? So while I didn't get into a specific tool yet, that's the concept I would like to start with. And then from a tool perspective, there are lots of tools in the marketplace that can help you visualize your work. So tools, Target Process, I think, does a nice job of visualizing dependencies. Jira Align can handle that. Rally can do some of that. So there are a number of tools that you may already be working with. Charlene, what's your approach here?
Yeah, and I think if we kind of back off and look at the practices a little bit more too, I think some of the best enablement that you have in the framework are really related to, like Kathy said, visualizing the work that you're trying to do. So I always look at kind of how you've structured your backlog and how we start to enable the Kanban systems, the connected Kanban systems. So we start to look at whether it's a solution train or a portfolio, what types of things are we trying to accomplish over a longer term planning horizon, and then leverage the Kanban systems that are built into SAFe so that we can start to articulate, even before you get into PI planning, what are some of the things that we know are going to need to happen? What are some of the dependencies between not only the teams on our train, but potentially other Agile release trains that are part of this value delivery, so that we can start thinking about those connections before we get to the PI, and then make sure that we have the pieces in place to understand how those groups work together. And that should help, at least get that visibility there, so that you have the right people that can get involved when you actually start doing your planning. And then we can start leveraging our tooling to make sure that we can maintain those connections as we go into executing, whether it be a solution train or a single Agile release train. But I think making sure that we're utilizing the Kanban systems to make things visible and identifying the dependencies ahead of time is definitely a best practice, regardless of which tool you choose to use to visualize all of this.
Yes, absolutely. And I love, Charlene, how you started talking about the connected Kanbans, because once we start to look at the work and how we slice the work, that may also influence our dependencies, just like how our trains are set up, how our teams are set up. All of these factors influence dependencies. So if we can tackle some of those root causes, we can do that. And then the other thing, of course, at PI planning, on your program board and on your solution board, make sure you have swim lanes for the other trains, as well as other off-train groups such as shared services. And that way you'll see those dependencies. And if you run your Scrum of Scrums or your Scrum of Trains in front of your program board or your solution board accordingly, then again, you're seeing those dependencies and you can more effectively manage them.
Absolutely. I think when we go back to the the Kanban systems, and if we think of a typical enterprise backlog structure, maybe a simple one for a portfolio safe, where we have epics that break down into features, that break down into the stories. We definitely want to start making those dependencies visible early on. A typical exit criteria that you'd want to use in your portfolio Kanban is identifying very early, even before you have an epic approved, who is likely to take part in this value delivery, which trains are probably there. And then as you start to break that epic down into features, as you go through that connected Kanban system, we get even to a lower level of granularity ahead of the PI. And typical exit criteria I have on the feature Kanban for the train is to really take another look at, for the specific feature, what are the teams within our train that are most likely to be involved, and what are the other key dependencies we may have left off. So definitely use that to your advantage. Sounds like we're out of time.
Thank you. Thank you. So now that this topic is over, we decide if we want to extend the topic or if we have no preference. So it's up to you to vote. So we'll take a couple more seconds for people to vote how they feel about the topic. And it looks like we're trending towards ending the topic, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. All right. So I'm going to move this over. And our next topic is tell us more about the addition of hardware development in SAFe 5.1.
Yeah, I could get us started with this topic. So from a SAFe perspective, the addition of hardware development is not new to SAFe. I think, when we start looking at the different pieces of, Agile delivery and the different types of teams we could have, we talk about hardware teams, software teams, firmware teams. But I think with the advent of SAFe 5.1, there's been some additional guidance to formalize some of those concepts so that we have, some concrete examples in how we can best leverage teams that are dedicated to hardware, how we can best leverage the principles and practices that are in SAFe. So we've talked before, in previous versions of SAFe about leveraging, model-based systems engineering and, the concepts around, modeling things and being able to identify, how we can incrementally develop and deliver value on things that are very hardware centric. So I think, with the newest version of the framework, then you've got, some clear-cut paths on, how we can connect the dots better between those different pieces. But just wanted to reiterate that I think a lot of the thought leadership has already been part of the framework, but now it's just become more advanced as we've got more examples in industry of how we, are leveraging SAFe in places that are more centered around hardware development.
Yes, and I think there's been more discussion about some of the realities in the hardware world. So we know that in certain industries, there are very long lead times for getting certain parts and types of assemblies, or if you need to create a new kind of chip. And so recognizing that some hardware elements do take a lot longer, using milestones, those ideas are still applicable. I think one of the other really important topics is helping people be a little bit more creative in looking at when could we use 3D modeling or 3D printing, I'm sorry, when maybe we hadn't been doing that before, and looking at other ways that we can integrate work more easily, whether that's with a digital twin or, as I said, using some 3D printed solutions to help us test out and see how well things are really integrating and fitting together.
Right, and even though we're dealing with hardware components, and like Kathy mentioned, some of those things could have long lead time because sometimes we've got to procure the particular piece of hardware in some cases, especially if we're working with suppliers. There might be a lead time through the contracting process to even get it, get it to your organization, and then also once we have that, we need to actually provision it to be used on our internal systems and networks, and that could have some lead time. But the principles and values of SAFe, are still there. They're still the same. They're still applicable in the hardware space. And we want to, make sure that we can leverage that to still keep batch sizes small, to still show through a longer term planning horizon of multiple PIs where we're trying to build the solution. What are the different steps that we're going to take, and how do we organize that into a roadmap of PIs where we can start to get that incremental value delivery and inspect and adapt those different pieces as they're coming online. So I think one of the things I'm just trying to hit home here is it's not really different. The problem space is not different. There's still a solution we're trying to build. It just happens to be more hardware centric as opposed to a typical software development that we think about in some of our products.
And to build on that, I was in a conversation yesterday actually with a number of hardware engineers, and they kind of came to the same conclusion, right? That these foundational principles are still important and applicable in their environment, even though they need to deal with some elements of their day-to-day work that is different from a pure software environment. So be mindful, think holistically about the solution that you're building, and find ways to work incrementally, and make sure that you're integrating as often as is practical so that you can test and see a running solution.
All right, thanks, ladies. So let's take some time to decide if we want to extend or end the topic. I'm going to choose no preference.
And Alyssa, you might want to give people just a little bit more in case they have to click over from Zoom to the Lean Coffee.
Okay, all right. Take a little more time. All right. So we're slowing down, and it looks like we're going to end the topic. Okay, next topic. I missed the topic, hold on. How do you handle dependencies when the arts are not iterating?
So when the arts are not iterating, maybe the person that submitted this question could add a comment here or put something into chat. When you say the arts are not iterating, I'm trying to understand what that really means. Do you have a team of teams, but you're working in a waterfall world? Or are the teams not synchronized? The arts started at different times. Thank you so much for that clarity. That makes it a lot easier to address your question. So if you have multiple arts that are working together, but they did not start at the same time,
I'm sorry.
you can still manage dependencies. It just takes more effort. Because now you have to, for example, I'm going to start with PI planning. When you build your program board, if you have dependencies with trains that are not on your cadence, you just need to keep their dates in mind on your board as you map out those dependencies. That's what you could do at PI planning, and then carry that forward as you execute the PI. I think the more important topic is to, one, decide, should our arts really be on the same cadence because we are so closely aligned that would help resolve some problems. The other thing to handle dependencies between the arts when they're not aligned is to take a closer look at why are there dependencies, the nature of those dependencies, ask some of the challenging questions. Are the teams aligned to arts properly, right? Again, kind of tackling that source of the dependencies. That's always where I like to start. Addressing the symptoms, right? Of how do I coordinate my iteration dates with your iteration dates? You can do that using milestones on both arts boards and in their planning activities. but I would try to address the fundamental question.
Absolutely. And that's where I was going to go, Kathy, as well. As I always try to take a look at kind of from a top-down perspective, when we start thinking about the implementation roadmap, right? The tried and true practices to really get started with SAFe. We always recommend before you launch a train, please conduct a value stream workshop, a value stream identification workshop, so we can identify the connection points with how we're going to eventually be building these solutions and what business areas they're aligned around. And that workshop helps us think through that. So in the specific case of this particular card, perhaps we maybe launched a train and maybe we haven't done that yet. So that would, if that's the case, it would still be worth revisiting the big picture view and trying to take a look at maybe we should conduct a value stream workshop and conduct some additional analysis so we understand why aren't we on the same cadence. And to Kathy's point, we can use that information to help really quantify why we should start aligning. We might be part of the same portfolio, and because we've done PI planning in the past, we can see that we're tightly coupled. So if we can align it around a specific value stream where we're iterating together to deliver on a specific solution, product, or service, it would make sense to use that information to help us get to the same cadence, or think about how we can be different about how we structure our trains. Maybe we need to take some of the same teams that are on one train because we're so tightly coupled to them, and it would make sense to actually have a similar capability on our train. And maybe we have enough people that we can do that. But definitely leverage value stream identification as an aid for you to help you make those decisions, rather than just saying, how do we tactically manage working this way, when there is probably a root cause of the lack of alignment to those operational value streams.
Yes, yeah. If we get more time, we can talk more about using value streams and how to handle that. I'll make a shameless plug. Next week, on Thursday, I am leading a webinar sponsored by Scaled Agile Inc. on preparing for and running value stream workshops just around these topics. So whether you're starting a new train or you need to revamp an existing set of trains, running that value stream workshop can be extremely beneficial.
And I will put a link to that, to the registration for that webinar in chat shortly, and also in the follow-up email to this event. All right, so we are at a dead even tie. Come on, somebody. Maybe we need a tiebreaker. Here we go. We're going to extend. Oh, no, wait. We're going to end. All right, are we sure? Okay. I think we're going to end it. No, wait.
All right.
All right, next vote. That's it.
Someone is very powerful.
Yeah, right.
How about maybe we just give a couple minutes to wrap it up?
Why don't we add 2 or 3 more minutes and then we can wrap up, because I feel that we both probably still have one other thing we want to add. Charlene, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, and just kind of taking a look at the comments here. As change agents, Kathy and I have worked at lots of different organizations, and sometimes we have the opportunity to really follow the implementation roadmap the way it was designed. And sometimes we walk into organizations where maybe we skipped a step because we thought that, an art or the organization thought that the train, just working in an agile release train format would help them. So it's never too late to run one of these. I think the point that I was trying to bring home is that is a really great exercise to bring the right leadership, the right functions to have those conversations about, do we know how we should organize? And based on how we've structured our trains today, is there an optimal way that maybe we can pivot to actually minimize dependencies, but still streamline our ability to deliver value to the customer? So that's my pitch right there, is it's never too late. And when we do value stream identification, it's never one and done. It's something that should be done on an ongoing basis, even if you do follow the implementation roadmap. I typically recommend to customers that I help that let's revisit this about once a year, and let's take a look at, based on what we've learned, is there a pivot we can make using this data to really continue that streamlining process. Kathy?
Yes, I agree, Charlene. It's not a once and done conversation because the world around us changes. How we need to serve our customers, maybe we are embracing certain emerging technologies, and that may influence how our arts are set up within a development value stream. Maybe we're ramping some development value stream down and another one up, again, because we're making significant changes in how we operate. So you will want to revisit it. And then once you are ready to address lean portfolio management topics, I find running the value stream workshop again as a double check is very beneficial, because that helps clarify and refine the development value streams, because those development value streams are what we fund in SAFE. And those development value streams are the foundation of our portfolios in a lean portfolio management world. So again, the more you understand about value stream identification, art design, how to run simulations to test your art design and understand the benefits and drawbacks of potential art design options, it really does help clarify things within your organization.
Okay. So we'll give people a little time to vote. Looks like people want to end the topic. All right, I'm going to finish that. And we will move on to our next topic. Okay. Compare SAFE's old feature and component teams to the team topologies team types.
Yeah, I'll be happy to get us started on this one. So this is a nice segue to the conversation we were just having, because we were talking about art design, and previous to the current version, we talked more about, the different options for designing your trains will include some mixture or balance of feature-centric teams versus component-centric teams. So in that model, it's still a valid way to look at art design. And I think when we start looking at some of the other thought leadership that's been introduced into SAFE 5.0, we start looking at team topologies, which gives us a bit more variation and options on other teams we could introduce into the ecosystem for our trains, right? So that, we talked previously about what we're optimizing for. We're always making trade-offs, right? We can have teams that are all feature-centric, but we might not have enough skill set to really make that happen in the early days. So we may need a balance of, component teams to get us started, because maybe we are limited with the amount of people that we have that know some of those domains. Over time, we try to make sure that we have the right balance between feature teams and component teams. But as we start looking at some of the thought leadership and team topologies, we introduce different ways to look at this. So we've got the concept around a streamlined team, teams that are organized around subsystems, specifically complicated subsystems where we may have some critical skills that are needed to support that space. And then, platform teams, which is a variation of a component team. And then introducing also enablement teams, which is a type of team that I've used in the past as well to help build out skill sets in specific areas. And I usually will engage leadership to help be part of these enablement teams or enabling teams to kind of help disseminate a lot of that subject matter expertise in the organization. So what I see is like a transition into a little bit more granularity on what do we mean by component teams. So we look at streamlined teams, which are probably closer to the nomenclature of feature teams. And then when we look at platform teams and subsystem teams, those are some other options we can use that are kind of related to the component teams that we have. But then we introduce this new concept of enabling teams so that we have another way to leverage some of the subject matter expertise in some of these domain areas. Kathy, did you have anything to add?
No, I thought you did an excellent job of summarizing. I did add a note about the 4 team types that we talk about using the team topologies framework. If you've read the book, Team Topologies, you will notice that Scaled Agile has made like a slight tweak to the definition of a complicated subsystem team type. But as Charlene said, the old feature team, think of that primarily as stream aligned. The enabling teams, I think, is a great concept. Since day one, I've talked about the system team in SAFE as being a special kind of an agile team. Well, now we have a better word for it. We can call it an enabling team. That's part of what most system teams do. If you have a LACE in your organization, a Lean Agile Center of Excellence, that is an enabling team. And so I think that the use of team topologies really provides us some helpful language that we can use when we are talking with people in our organizations about the types of teams we're setting up and how these teams collaborate with each other. What SAFE hasn't adopted yet or integrated into the framework yet are the collaboration patterns that exist amongst these different team types. And so, again, I would encourage you to read the Team Topologies book. I think the last thing I want to say on this topic about team topologies is the important reminder that all of these teams, enabling teams, platform teams, complicated subsystem teams, they exist to reduce the cognitive load of the stream-aligned teams. So all of these teams are here to help the stream-aligned teams be more effective. And I think that's an important mindset to keep in mind as you look at designing agile teams and using these concepts when you're designing trains that exist within a solution train. Yes, I'll put the book into chat. So in chat, I put a link to Matthew Skelton and Manuel Paez, their website, which provides some information on team topologies, and it also gives you a launching off place where you can buy their book, or you can buy it from Amazon, whichever, but driving you to their website gives you some really good information.
So it looks like people would like to extend the topic. Kathy, Charlene, 2 minutes sound good?
Sure.
Sure, and so I'll just build on what I said before, this idea of having stream-aligned teams that can provide end-to-end value. That's what lean thinking is all about, right? We want to have people who can get the job done without handoffs, without delays. And so stream-aligned teams are extremely effective. But these other team types can shield those stream-aligned teams from complexity. And that pays for itself. So one of the differences between what's in the Team Topologies book and what is in SAFE, in the book, they talk about one reason to form a complicated subsystem team is to deal with the fact that sometimes certain skills are extremely hard to find or to develop. So imagine you need some biomathematicians to help build a medical device. Those people don't grow on trees. And so you might have those people as part of a complicated subsystem team because their skills are so specialized and they do one thing and one thing really well. And then the other teams can just tap into their work, their knowledge, their solutions. So it's things like that and thinking about how do we organize teams.
Right, in the remaining 12 seconds, I just wanted to chime in again on enabling teams because I see a lot of value in this, especially if you've got a lot of single-threaded skill sets where there's a lot of knowledge in the organization. A lot of that knowledge, resides in our leadership where they may have been working on some of these complicated subsystems and platforms, and we can leverage their knowledge to help kind of remove some of the constraints by sharing that knowledge across the organization via these enablement teams. So just wanted to plant the seed there, probably worth investigating a little bit more. But definitely take a closer look, at least at the safe guidance around this for a little bit more deeper dive on what we've touched on here.
Okay, so
yes.
Go ahead, Kathy.
I was just going to say, if you read, there's an advanced topic article that came out last year on this, and now with the release of SAFE 5.1 on the big picture, if you read the Agile Teams article, you'll see how team topologies has been integrated. That's the Agile Teams article on the SAFE website.
All right, thank you. I'm going to finish the topic. All right, next question. How can you best get moving on the implementation of the portfolio canvas? Follow-up, as organizations develop their OVS, how do we best tie that back to the PC?
All right, Kathy, I'm not sure if you'd like to get us started. I know time's a little limited.
Sure, I'll get started, and I just want to apologize to everybody on the call. I am going to drop in just a few minutes. I need to get ready for my next event. So how can you best get moving on the implementation of the portfolio canvas? So here's my advice. And as you develop your operational value stream, how do we best tie back to the portfolio canvas? Great question. So I like to start with, where are we today? So if you understand where you are today, then talking about change is much easier. And so how do you best get started on the implementation of the portfolio canvas? Download that canvas and literally just start to fill it out. That would be my approach. Talk with the portfolio leaders to understand some of the elements within today's portfolio as it's currently defined. So who are the customers, what's the revenue, what's the cost structure, et cetera. And if your portfolios are really aligned by organizational structure rather than around how SAFE would encourage you to define your portfolios, you'll find that filling out some of those squares in the canvas is a little bit awkward. And that's okay. That can be a starting point for the conversation, along with the work that we mentioned before to identify the development value streams and kind of go at it from what could a future state be, and then you can work through how to get there. So with that, I'm going to hand everything back over to Alyssa and Charlene and say thank you guys very much for your questions. Go ahead.
Thanks, Kathy. So when it comes to this specific topic, and I want to tie it back to the previous topic when we were touching on lean portfolio management and introducing it, I think it's always important to take that kind of big picture view where folks understand how lean portfolio management fits within the organization. And if the organization is new to the framework, there's a series of, in my opinion, kind of get started steps to understand, what we need to do before we actually get into the point where we actually launch an Agile release train. So if we think about making sure folks actually have some kind of basic training in SAFe, our leadership has been part of an executive workshop. We've done some SAFe overviews, maybe even getting to the point of leading SAFe. Then we can have that understanding of where that business agility competency for lean portfolio management really fits in to help the organization. And before you even get into the identification of value streams as well, it's important to do a bit of homework to understand the organization and how they're set up. What are the big business units that are set up today? What do we, how are we funding some of the things that are focal points for some of these businesses? And are they really portfolios, or are they just funding lines? So you can use, one of these canvases, the portfolio canvas, to help understand, is this really a portfolio, or is this really just a funding line? So once we start to have that kind of big picture understanding, then we can take a look within a specific business area and identify through that value stream identification workshop, what are the different product solutions and services that we actually build as part of this business area. And that will give you that alignment to the portfolio. And as part of the portfolio canvas exercise, we can use those value streams to help be part of that definition, because that's one of the, that's one of the panels that are in the portfolio canvas. So once we get to that point, like Kathy said, the best thing to do is just get started filling it out so that we have a clear definition on, what business area or portfolio are we actually supporting. And then as we continue to iterate over that, the guidance with the use of the portfolio canvas is we can, if we have a clearly defined business area, clearly defined portfolio, we can use that canvas to define how we're set up today, and then also do some experiments to say what kind of portfolio or business area do we want to be 5 years from now, and use the deltas between the two to help us develop a portfolio vision for that change. But it's key that we have that big picture view first, and then use that as a segue to get into a conversation about value streams within that portfolio by using that value stream identification workshop. So I hope that helped. I'm happy to talk more about this, give some more examples, but I'll leave it up to you.
All right, please submit your votes for if you'd like to extend or end the topic. All right, I think we're going to end. All right, next topic. All big ideas are captured in the Portfolio Kanban funnel. Beyond that, what are widely accepted entrance criteria for an epic to come into the funnel?
Right, great question. I love all these questions about lean portfolio management. Yeah, we do say that all big ideas are captured there. So, that means that things that are coming from overall enterprise strategy can influence what comes into the funnel. The Agile release trains that are part of a portfolio can influence that. They might be doing some innovation. They might have been doing some, discovery work or exploration type of activities. And through that, they identify that there's some things that are portfolio worthy that should be considered. And then also, just new ideas that might come in from the business in general through their own initiatives that might happen before we even kick off this portfolio Kanban process. So as far as widely accepted entrance criteria for an epic to come in the funnel, I think the framework provides clear guidance on how things come in there. I think some of the anti-patterns or challenges that I've seen when we're in our early days of implementing lean portfolio management, and specifically the portfolio Kanban, are that we try to overanalyze and try to bake in too much into the epic when we're just trying to introduce it into the funnel. So, it's important to understand that we want to allow, there is no whip limit when we're in the funnel. We do want to allow all ideas to come in there. But as far as moving from the funnel into, the first state, which would be the review state and the portfolio Kanban and SAFe, we'd want a little bit more criteria on what's worthy of moving from left to right. So typically, to answer the question specifically about widely accepted entrance criteria for an epic to come in the funnel, we try not to have too much of a filter on that, right? We, in the spirit of keeping everything visible, knowing that it can come from, all of these different places, the enterprise, other Agile release trains, new business initiatives, we do want to keep that open. But then once we get beyond that first state in the portfolio Kanban, then we can start to introduce a little bit more criteria so that we can start to filter out things that might not necessarily net us the highest benefit. So I feel like that one was pretty straightforward. I'm not sure the person who asked this question, is there a comment you'd like to add to this? Is there additional questions you might have based on that response?
Yeah, if not, we'll just end the topic, or we can come back to it later too if more questions develop. I'll put it at the top or near the top. Okay, so next topic, summarize value stream related updates in SAFe 5.1.
Yeah, absolutely. So SAFe 5.1 actually, I think everyone's aware, just got recently released officially. And I think some of the biggest changes when we start thinking about value streams are, prior to 5.1, the majority of the focus has been on development value streams in SAFe. When we look at the blue chevrons in the big picture, when we look at, the Agile release train and its relationship to the value stream, we really hone in on development value streams. But with, the promotion of SAFe 5.0 starting early last year, and it's very, very, heavy focus on business agility, and the dual operating system for business agility. In 5.1, we've now got the operational value stream as a first-class citizen. So you can actually see that as a prominent icon in the framework, in the top of the framework where we talk about business agility. And basically, some of the things that are introduced there are just really getting us to think more, a little bit more tactically, that there could be different types of operational value streams. They could be both externally facing for, the type of customers that may purchase our product, solutions, or services, but we may also have operational value streams that could be internally facing. And, there's additional guidance that's given around that so that we can start really thinking about, some of the different patterns of those operational value streams, which can lead us to think a little bit more differently about the development value streams that would actually be supporting those. So within some of the new guidance for operational value streams, there's some clear definitions around 4 different types of operational value streams. We have a fulfillment value stream, also manufacturing value streams are discussed there, where we might work on things that are more raw materials, and then the typical, software product development value stream or software product value stream to help with some of those different software and applications that support some of these product areas. But then, the next one is really around those supporting value streams. They may be some of these support activities within the organization that may support another externally facing operational value stream, so that we have a way to define those as well. And a lot of complex ecosystems, we have a combination of both, but I think previous to 5.1, there hasn't been that kind of explicit guidance that those things were possible to define or easy to define. So a lot of that change is helping us make sure that is made very visible and clear, because not every operational value stream is always going to be externally facing. And regarding some of the changes around development value streams that are related to this, because we identify those 4 different types, there's some clear examples that are given for development value streams within each of those different operational value stream types, which can help us when we are conducting those value stream identification workshops. So that's all prominently figured as changes in the framework. Also, when we start thinking about some of the different types of teams that could be part of our development value stream, the reference to the different types of value streams are updated in the Agile teams article when we talk about business teams and technology teams as well. Another focal point you'll see in the framework is that, when we think about these development value streams, those blue chevrons that are prominently figured throughout the framework, what happens at the end of these value streams? What are we actually delivering? So we've got prominently captured icons now that really focus on solutions, and you'll see those new icons in the framework as well. So you'll see that both for the Agile release train, as well as the value streams that we might have for a given portfolio. those are the big highlights of some of those changes. But I think they're definitely warranted and worthy, because now we have operational value streams clearly called out on the framework. So I'm glad to see that that's there.
All right, so we can go ahead and end this topic, and we don't have time for another topic, so we'll just go ahead and wrap it up. Thank you so much, Charlene, for your time and expertise. We really appreciate it, and I think everybody learned something on this call. Just to recap what I said before, I'll be sending out a follow-up email within 24 hours with a link to the recording, and then a couple of registration links for webinars that Kathy is doing with Scaled Agile around value streams and arts, and then launching Agile trains remotely. And I will also send links to some of the articles that were mentioned throughout this session. So thank you everybody for attending. And if you haven't liked our LinkedIn page or subscribed to our YouTube channel yet, please do that. We post all of our webinars on YouTube for you to watch, and we'll be announcing more Lean Coffees coming up. I think we've decided to make it a series pertaining to different topics around SAFe and executive leadership. So look out for that. Thanks everyone so much.
Thank you.
Yeah. Bye.